Hello and welcome to your audit revision session. My name's Louise and I'm one of the distance learning tutors here at First Intuition. And this evening we're going to be looking over a task 2 from an audit mock. So we'll jump straight in and let's have a read of the question. So Jethro is the audit manager for a new client, Tool PLC. He has made inquiries of the financial controller regarding a customer account balance of £32,000 that has been unpaid for 12 months. I doubt we will receive a penny from this customer. The last I heard, they had filed for bankruptcy. We have not entered a provision as the directors want to show a high profit this year. Okay, so this is what the financial controller has said regarding this £32,000 balance. And this is a very good example of picking out the relevant information for a task. So Jethro is our audit manager and Tool PLC is our client. The account balance is for £32,000 and it's been unpaid for 12 months. Okay, and the directors want to show a high profit this year. So let's just have a look at the actual task. Identify the best course of action for Jethro. Qualify the audit opinion. Resign from the audit engagement. Raise the issue at the closing meeting with the directors, or ignore the issue as profits appear key this year. Now, the first one that I'm going to point out, the first one I'm going to go to is this: ignore the issue as profits appear key this year. And we are told the directors want to show a high profit for this year. Well, whether the directors want to show a high profit or not is completely irrelevant to the auditors, right? We are looking to see, do the financial statements show a true and fair view? So we can ignore this option straight away. And this piece of information here, completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. Okay, what are our other options? So we've got resign from the audit engagement. Well, that seems a little bit extreme. Yeah, we're probably not going to resign from the audit engagement right now. At the very least, some more investigation is going to need to be done. So we'll get rid of that one. So we're left with qualify the audit opinion and raise the issue at the closing meeting with the directors. Now, what we need to pull out here is the fact that this account balance is for £32,000. If a company is being audited, the chances are that their turnover is millions and millions of pounds, which means an account balance of 32,000 would not be material. Whether that £32,000 is showing in the accounts or not is not going to affect the picture of the company. It's not going to affect decision makers. You know, if a bank manager was considering loaning a company, whether that £32,000 is showing in receivables or not is really not going to make any difference if the company is a multi-million-pound turnover company. So that's what they want you to spot here. So we're not going to qualify the audit opinion because we qualify the audit opinion when there's a material issue. So the answer here would be raise the issue at the closing meeting with the directors. So be careful with tasks like that. So part B then, which two of the following would need to be proved for a successful negligence claim for Tool PLC? Tripping up on my words. So which two, so it's two of the following, would need to be proved for a successful negligence claim for Tool PLC? So Tool PLC actually lost money after relying on the auditor's report. That seems like that would be a good reason for Tool PLC to sue their auditors for negligence. Let's have a look though. The auditor's fee was too high for the amount of work performed. Okay, well, the fee would have been decided before engagement, so it's not going to be that one. The shareholders breached their duty of care. Okay, so the shareholders are paying for the audit. So we're not looking for the shareholders breaching their duty of care, it would be the auditors breaching their duty of care. And lastly, a duty of care existed between the auditor and party bringing the claim. That makes more sense. Yeah. So Tool PLC actually lost money after relying on the auditor's report, we're happy with that. That would show negligence. And a duty of care existed between the auditor and party bringing the claim. Well, yes, they would do if Tool PLC have employed the auditor to come and do their audit, then a duty of care is going to exist. Just looking out for these tricky wordings, typical AAT. Okay, now we've got a pick list and some complete the sentences. So let's have a read through. It says there are ways that Jethro's audit firm can limit their liability against a negligence claim. Why can't I say that word? These are set out below. We've got a pick list and we're asked to complete the following by selecting the correct option. So we start with Jethro's firm can set themselves up as a something which will reduce the liability on each partner. If we have a look at the options we're given, so it's not going to be any of these three. Maybe could be limited liability partnership or partnership. Okay, let's remember what we know about a limited liability partnership. They are basically a hybrid of a company and a partnership. So in some respects, it's like a company. So it's a separate legal entity. It can be sued in its own name. It can own assets in its own name. And what that also means is that the owners get limited liability protection. So whereas with a sole trader, for instance, they can stand to lose their home and their car and their own personal possessions. If they're a limited liability partnership, they have that protection. So it will be the limited liability partnership that's liable for any debts, and the owners are protected. So I would say our answer here is limited liability partnership. Can I fit it in there? Just about. So Jethro's firm can set themselves up as a limited liability partnership, which will reduce the liability on each partner. They can also take out something. So what can they take out? Well, it's not going to be any of those. It's going to be our professional indemnity insurance. Be careful not to get that mixed up with personal indemnity insurance. So our professional indemnity insurance, also known as PPI, I'll just pop that there. PII, sorry, also known as PPI. This is something that must be taken out by audit firms, okay? They must take this out. So then what happens is if it's proven that they have been negligent, if they are found to be liable, the insurance company will cover the damages. So this is going to be, I'm just going to put PII. It's going to be pretty tight fit in that box, isn't it? Okay, let's continue on. So they can also take out PII. Firms can reduce their liabilities by having a something, although this should be reasonable. Okay, so this is going to be a liability cap. So if you remember, firms can have a liability limitation agreement with their client, which is also known as a liability cap. What this means is there will be an amount that is capped that the auditor would need to pay if they were found to be liable. However, this cap must be reasonable and it must be agreed on before the audit begins. So by reasonable would depend on the company and it would depend on the kind of work that was involved, how big of a project it was. It couldn't, for instance, be £1. That would not be seen as being reasonable. And if the auditing company tried to take it to court and say, well, we had a cap of £1, we don't have to pay more than £1, the courts are going to say that was not a reasonable cap and that cap's going to be blown out of the water. And then they can be sued for however much. So the answer here is our liability cap. Okay, and the last part then. So a statement should also be issued in the audit report specifically limiting liability to any partner other than, and this is going to be the shareholders. So we have a liability disclaimer paragraph that can be added as a statement in the audit report. So that's where that goes. It's a statement in the audit report limiting liability to anyone other than the shareholders. Okay, let's carry on. It's a nice little section, I think. So for the fundamental principle of objectivity at Jethro's audit firm to be upheld, independence must be upheld. Independence, very, very, very important for auditors. Would the following measures help an accountant to maintain appropriate distance between their work and their personal life? Let's have a look. Avoiding situations where a reasonable and informed observer could question your ability to be objective or to apply professional skepticism. Well, as an auditor, it is our job to be skeptical. It is our job to look between the lines, to see what's missing, to be able to see if the information that we have been provided by a company is complete, is it fair, is it true? So avoiding situations where we look like we're not being objective and we're not applying professional skepticism is definitely going to help our principle of objectivity. Absolutely. The next one we have is by keeping the same audit manager on the client as they know the client well. So this saves time in the audit review. This is always a tricky one. This is one that throws students. So you may think, well, if we keep the same audit manager, they know what's happened previously, they've got a good handle on how this company prepares their statements and how their work is done. So in that respect, it sounds like a really good thing to do. However, we are human beings. And if we have been managing the same client year in, year out, and that client has never caused us any trouble, never done anything wrong, always provides us the information on time, everything's always great. It's a really smooth audit with this client. And then one year, things are a little bit different. There's some documentation that's missing. There are some transactions that can't fully be explained. If you have been the manager on this company's audit for a long, long time, you may be more inclined to not do your due diligence. So if the owner of the company gives you some wishy-washy explanation for where these documents have gone or what's happened with these transactions, you might be more inclined to accept those as answers. Whereas if it was a new company that you had not audited before as a manager, you are definitely going to be a lot more strict. So this is why we shouldn't have the same manager year on, year out for the same company. So our answer here is no. And lastly, we've got decline in the work if it could be deemed not to be independent. Well, we've just said, haven't we? Auditors, they need to look like they're being independent, 100%. If auditors do not look like they're being independent, then their results from this audit are not going to be trusted. People are not going to trust what the audit's saying. So decline in the work if it could be deemed not to be independent would absolutely be the right thing to do. And finally, we've got which professional body is responsible for setting international standards for auditing? So our ISAs. Now, again, this one's those students. So we've got the International Audit and Assurance Standards Board, which is our IAASB, or the Auditing Practices Board, which is the APB. Well, our answer here is the International Audit and Assurance Standards Board. And just try to remember your APB, so your Auditing Practices Board, they adopt the ISAs. So they adopt the ISAs which they feel like they are applicable for the UK. Okay, so the IASB will set the auditing standards. They're an international board. And then the APB will look at these standards that have been set by the IASB and decide which ones are relevant for the UK and Ireland. So just be careful not to get those two muddled up. And that's it for your task 2. And I would say you've got some nice little questions like this section here, which I think you should be fairly comfortable with at this stage in your level 4 studies. This is probably your hardest section, so just be really careful here. Take a step back, read it back to yourself, and ensure that everything makes sense, and don't get thrown off by things like personal versus professional. Okay, thank you all for joining me, and we will be back with task 3.